what are we looking for coming in this next year? And how do you see Bitcoin changing, the narrative globally here?
I think what can be said with a fairly good amount of certainty is that there is a halving coming up, which means that there will be less supply coming into the market any given day, and that can be thought of to decrease supply, which might be thought of to increase price, assuming that the demand stays the same.
Hey everyone, welcome back to StockPulse. Today I've got an amazing treat for you guys. I've got the Elias Ahonen. Elias is an author and has been a Bitcoin historian for a long time, right? Like since the beginning of when crypto came out in 2013, he's been doing some really great consulting. He's been a published author and wrote a book that a lot of us consider the Bible when it comes to physical cryptocurrencies. So Elias, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, when I get the opportunity to speak with you, I'll be honest, we kind of hooked up randomly on a chat together. We're both part of a group who loves physical cryptocurrencies. And I was looking for someone to come on and share about physical cryptocurrencies and maybe some of the historical things that a lot of people have missed throughout the years. So I'm really excited that you actually offered to come. And not just that, but you're going to be speaking at the StockPulse Silver Symposium this year. You're going to be one of our keynote speakers as we talk about crypto and Bitcoin and how that changes our monetary systems and the way that we're doing banking. Elias, you're also an author too, and not just an author, but you publish for CoinDesk as well. So one of the things I want to talk about. Cointelegraph. That's right. I read the article. You were working with a lady who in 2013, like one of her first transactions was to send money in her country to Venezuela for her family, right? Now, these are the things where you start seeing the power of blockchain, but you saw it back then. So take a sec and bring me up to speed, because when I was mining Bitcoin, it was just me by myself in a warehouse. I had no idea people like you were out there. I had no idea physical Bitcoin existed. I had no idea what I was missing. And now I'm finally catching up.
Well, I would argue that if you were mining in your basement in those early years, you're the one that was doing the real stuff. And, us with the physical Bitcoins were just memeing around. I'll give a quick introduction to this phenomena. So physical Bitcoins, they were created initially in 2011 as educational tools. And I actually have something to show off here. So here's an example. This is a half BTC coin. It's brass. It says 0.5 Bitcoins. It's 2013. And on the other other side, that's right. So this is the OG one. There's a hologram sticker for security, and there's a public key on top of it with which you can verify the amount. And if you peel that key off, the sticker off, as has been done with this, there is the private key underneath. So this is actually it used to hold half a Bitcoin, and the idea was that it's an educational prop to show that, look, here's a Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin. It's mine. I control the private keys. If I give it to you or give it to a waiter as a tip, then I no longer have access, and that's with them. Now there is of course, you're kind of trusting whoever created them with, not having stored the private key and so on. But that was the initial purpose, and Bitcoin was not worth much in those days.
Yeah, when you talk about, having the private keys and trusting people, it's really interesting. I'm going to shift this over real quick, and I'll share a screen with you guys here. This is a coin that was made by another creator, and I'm sure you know a lot about this one as well, but this is one of the coins that we found out the public key was kept and the private key was kept, and the funds were removed from this. So that is one of the things that we talk about. But then there are also other creators like the one you had with Mike Caldwell. And this guy here, I'm sure a lot of people recognize. One of my personal favorites is Lialana, stores 1 Bitcoin on it. But they go for quite a premium, don't they, in terms of how they function, in terms of how they work within the community. It's a collector's item now.
Indeed, these even this one that I'm holding now that has no Bitcoin inside, it's worth several hundred, around 1,000 or more even on the collector market as a collectible, because these are limited edition items, and I would say they're physical relics of this cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, blockchain movement, which is mostly, of course, digital. Some of these Cassatius coins and Lealana coins and others, they go for significant premiums. The one you showed me there, if I believe that's a 1 Bitcoin Lealana, if it was loaded, I could imagine that going for 1.5 or 2 or more Bitcoin on an auction. So it's got significant value.
That one right there is cool too. But then there's also the idea that they have a set, right? So there's the 1 Bitcoin. Here's the half Bitcoin. And when you collect the whole set, right, here's a 0.25 Bitcoin. And these are all with the gold foils. And they make some as well with the silver foils, right? So for you guys who've seen them, they have silver and gold foils, and it just depends on what we got. But there's a lot of fun stuff when it comes to taking a look at what we're doing with physical cryptocurrencies. So for me, it's really the idea that we have come such a long ways, because now we're transitioning to digital versions of physical things like gold-backed digital currencies. It's kind of the opposite, right? You got physical cryptos and you've got digital silver. So the idea of when we're coming to central bank digital currencies and looking at this, how do you see these two worlds colliding together? I mean, you see this representation of Bitcoin in a physical world, and you see a digital representation of silver. I'm trying to figure out which one actually, will take the cake here, because to me, something that has a physical, tangible item like Bitcoin in your hand seems to be a lot more valuable than just silver by itself. And I don't understand how they're going to trick people into thinking that they have value of silver digitally.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go into to accuse anyone of tricking anything. I think if you, when we say digital, what does that mean? I mean, if it's based on contracts, it's based on something. There's some sort of legal agreement there that you're trading contracts where someone is promising someone silver, and that's based on a legal responsibility of someone to deliver that silver somewhere, and that might, there might be several layers of that. I think the question might be of, is that a reliable system that, right. Can something happen to destabilize that? Is there, because the more layers you have, there's more things to audit, there's more things that can go wrong, whereas then if you hold the silver in hand, less things can go wrong. Of course, you might have other problems. It might be stolen, you might lose it. Yeah. It might make you a target for some things, and it might have less liquidity because of the costs of verifying that and selling and so on. But I think a healthy marketplace has room for all of these things.
When you talk about that, that's a really good point too, because I hear so many companies and projects developing regarding not just a central bank digital currency that is gold backed, but there's also a lot of utility tokens that we're starting to see come out on the market, such as Kinesis or Load or LD2, that are holding a deposit of silver to back those coins as collateral. But I think the real question comes down to, there's counterparty risk with any situation you go into. Even if you start to look at something like this that we have, right? We understand that this also, you have to trust the person that made the private key, because there are times where, as you said, if the private key is not trusted, even someone like Bobby Lee, who's been doing it for so long with the BTCT coins, he has a reputation of making good coins. That's why you can go on and do things like Ballet. But other people who don't have that reputation, there's still that counterparty risk. It's the same thing with the digital version of silver, because you're going to have to trust that they have it, that they are trustworthy people, that they are going to honor their obligations, and that they're smart enough to actually, complete the protocols correctly, or in this case, to put the private keys on here correctly so that when you do want to redeem it, everything functions as it's supposed to. Private key versus public key where you send it to. So these are the things where it gets really interesting, especially as we start going into the Silver Symposium. Now, for you guys, if you like this stuff, please like, share, subscribe, give us a thumbs up right now. This is the kind of stuff that helps us get going. But as we're going into the Silver Symposium, I want to ask you a couple of questions because you see what's going on in Durban. And I know that you live in Dubai, so you have a great vast of knowledge, understanding how things work in different countries. You're well-traveled. You have a lot of experience out there. What do you see happening right now with the BRICS nations, and what do you suspect is going on in Durban at the end of this month?
Frankly, I think it's above my pay grade. I mean, kind of just on a tangent with that. I mean, Dubai is cool because it's got the culture around precious metals is very different than in the Western world, where in the West, and by that I mean Europe and the Americas, gold and silver has traditionally been money, but now it's been abstracted away and in many places forgotten and kind of even considered something very outdated. Whereas then in the Middle East and in India, precious metals are very much considered cash. So people are trading in physical gold, physical silver, and based on my experiences, actually, it's probably the place where you'll get physical silver bars for the lowest premium, kind of in store, just because it's such an efficient market.
Yeah, my family's from Egypt, and it reminds me that when I was in Egypt, silver does move quite a bit over there. And I remember my mom asking me when I got married, Patrick, why aren't you getting your wife gold? Where is the gold, Habibi? It's like, Mom, I got Bitcoin for her. She's like, no, gold. You need gold for your wife or you don't love her. It's like, so it is a very different culture when you start thinking globally. But I'm seeing that right now, even places like Venezuela, El Salvador, Nigeria, they're starting to adopt the use cases here for digital currency, for blockchain. Now, this is quite an evolution from when you imagine back when you were writing your book, the Encyclopedia, right? This was a dream to be seeing it here. You and I want to actually just say it as a comment, right? Think about it. When people tell you, Elias, Bitcoin's tanking, it's at $30,000. How about that, guys? You Bitcoiners, Bitcoin's at 30,000. And we're looking back going, do you remember when, right? Do you remember when? So what are you most looking forward to right now? I guess with the cycle coming up, the halving is coming. What are we looking for coming in this next year? And how do you see Bitcoin changing, the narrative globally here?
Well, you can never. I'll start with the first part. I mean, we say that Bitcoin's tanking. It's $30,000, and it's like, well, as long as it doesn't go below $30, I guess I'm in profit because that's when I bought my first ones in 2013. So I don't think we'll go there, And if we do, then then I'll have a bad day. But where was I? But yeah, I mean, it's impossible to tell the future. And if I had known the future in 2013, I would have, bought a lot more. So I can't say where we're going exactly beyond, what I might like to see or hope to see. I think what can be said with a fairly good amount of certainty is that there is a halving coming up, which happens every 4 years in Bitcoin. And what that means, as you probably know, is the issuance drops by half, which means that there will be less supply coming into the market any given day, and that can be thought of to decrease supply, which might be thought of to increase price, assuming that the demand stays the same. And it historically, this is not the first halving, of course. We usually haven't seen an immediate reaction by the markets into the happenings. So I don't know if anything would happen immediately going even by that past. But broadly speaking, if we look at the Bitcoin development, price development over the last, I want to say 7-8 years, we've been going on roughly a 4-year cycle, which is a 4-year halving cycle. And that's become somewhat of a narrative. And one of the things with a narrative, of course, is that they can be powerful and they can perpetuate themselves for that very reason. So, we could definitely see that having an impact for if no other reason than that.
And one of the things that you do that's a little different than most of the people I get to speak with is you have the ability to integrate what's happening with law right now as you're learning through that right now. What do you see happening in terms of legislation, international law regarding blockchain and cryptocurrency? What's the big thing right now? We see ETFs coming in. We see Gensler playing games in the US, but what else is happening internationally that maybe we are not seeing here in the US?
So for background, I'm doing my PhD in international law at the University of Turku in Finland, and specifically on the topic of blockchain and cryptocurrencies and how that is conflicting with the international order, so to say, of international law and processes and institutions, and how things might be changing in the future. And one of those key ideas is that the fact that blockchain and encryption, that makes Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies possible, it makes it possible to send money and own money, or I don't know if I should say money, but units of value or tokens of whatever we want to assign them as, possible in a way that wasn't possible before, because you can send them freely to anyone. You can have organizations and systems operating where it's very difficult to say what their jurisdiction is, or even who's running them, like with the case of some decentralized autonomous organizations. So those are very powerful winds that are blowing, and on the international law side, I don't know if it's international law per se, but as far as regulations and government actions go, there's definitely the attention of all the big players here. The European Union is actively putting forth some legislation called MiCA right now, which will basically concern KYC with exchanges. And eventually, I think what we're going to see is that as people use these centralized exchanges to trade cryptocurrencies, those exchanges will basically track their taxation obligations based on their jurisdiction, based on where they're a resident, possibly even retain those taxes in it right away and send those off to the government. So the intention is to basically make the market fluid and integrate it into the system. And that goes in hand in a way with what's happening with the ETFs. I remember there was an ETF, like they've been trying this ETF for years and years, over 5 years, and there's been some success. We have the Grayscale Bitcoin fund and such, but the real ETF hasn't actually been approved in the US, at least. I know I think I'm correct in saying this. When the gold ETF was first put live, sometimes in early 2000, was it 2003? What followed, if you look at the chart, it was a gold bull market for basically a decade, which meant that you could more efficiently buy gold, and it just made the market more efficient. So now with BlackRock having made an application for an ETF, it's very likely that that's going to be approved, if for no other reason that BlackRock has made something like, if I recall, around 500 and something ETF
575. It's like crazy. They've 99% of them they've won.
Only one of them they haven't got accepted.
Yeah.
So, the chances are pretty good here. So that's going to lead the way for other ETFs in other countries as well. And I think that what's happening is that Bitcoin is, it's showing that it's here to stay. And, if there can have ever been said to have been a war between governments and Bitcoin, I think we're at the point where they're saying, yeah, Bitcoin's here. Let's just integrate it into the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And one of the funny things, in my opinion, is you can see as they come out with new regulations and legislations or case laws or anything that they want to put out there, Bitcoin's never the one they're touching. Even last week, when the Coinbase was told to stop trading all their altcoins except for Bitcoin, they come out and they say, "Hey, here's going to be the pieces of cryptos that we're going to be able to use." It's always Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. Like Bitcoin's always the one that you're never going to get away from it. We can already agree globally it is a commodity, and they're trying to tax it differently. But one of the things you saw happen this week, and I don't know if you heard this one, but PayPal is coming out with their PayPal USD stablecoin on Paxos. Did you hear about that?
I heard something about it.
So to me,
it's cool.
Think about this though. If PayPal's already come out and said, we're going to be making sure that anything over $600, we're going to report, and you're going to have to pay taxes on that. Now they're saying if you don't follow the rules, there's also a $2,500 fine they can assess on your account. And now they're going to release a coin that's KYC'd that runs on the Ethereum blockchain. So at this point, when you send any of that PayPal USD to your ERC20 wallet, they're going to know exactly what other tokens you're holding in that wallet that runs on the Ether blockchain. And should you transact more or less, again, this is an opportunity for them to dox yourself. So I just want to keep that in there, right? That's the opportunity. Blockchain is pseudo-anonymous, but if you give them enough data, they can start connecting the dots. So be cautious with that, because these are the things that governments are trying to plan. You're right. They do want to take away the anonymity. They do want to control the money. And I think it's something that we're seeing all over, but blockchain itself is beautiful. Bitcoin itself is made to be a truth item. It's sovereignty. It's what we were talking about in the beginning. When you hold this coin, you can give it to someone and you are giving them the keys to your coin. You're not giving them Bitcoin, you're giving them the private keys. So these are the things that we're going to be talking about even more as we get into the Silver Symposium, as we come up together. Elias, I'm really excited to see you in September. And I'm sure that there's going to be many people who have no idea what's coming, right? Like the idea of physical Bitcoin in the precious metal space is something that I'm very excited to share. I know you'll be coming, you'll be having books, you'll be signing stuff. So I want to give you the last, 10 seconds here. Tell me what you think. What is there to leave our audience with today? And what are you most looking forward to?
Well, depends what we're focusing on here. But I guess as far as Vegas comes, I'm really looking forward to see how how the silver community reacts to this idea of having physical cryptocurrencies and also physical silver tokens with a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency theme, and the idea that you have a silver coin that has Bitcoin or Ethereum inside, a fusion of the kind of the traditional and innovative and the old and the new. So I think I'm looking forward to see if that light bulb comes on or if it's a reaction of disgust or something in between.
Yes, I think you're right. And for you guys, until next time, remember, keep stacking. The whole nature of this whole conversation is, for one thing, we're trying to show people that Bitcoin is the only asset that has ever been created where we know the definite supply. There's no other asset class in history. And as we bring people like Elias, who can add context to the conversation, help us understand some of the challenges that we faced and where we're going from here and into the future. So for you guys, I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And Elias, I'll see you next time.
Thanks, you too.